I aim to answer the question that has plagued mankind ever since we first crawled from the primordial ooze and stood erect in the sun. Is man really a walrus after all? Hi everybody, I'm the Peculiar Lefty, and welcome to 31 Days of Horror. This month, every day, I'll be uploading a new video about a horror film or a horrifying film of some kind. Normally people do this in October with it finishing on Halloween, but I didn't, so I'm going to do it now, because why not? Every time of the year is a good time to be frightened. Today I'm going to be dealing with a film called Tusk. Now, when you think of horror directors, most people don't think of Kevin Smith, either because they don't know who he is, or because they associate him with sort of 90s comedies like Dogma and Clerks. But he did make a comedy horror film in 2014 about a dude being turned into a walrus. So yeah, that's what I'll be talking about today. Tusk is, I think, the only horror comedy that's ever been made. Except for The Evil Dead, obviously, which doesn't count because it's shit. Obviously, I've seen Shaun of the Dead, Black Sheep and so on, but all of them, and in fact every so-called horror comedy film I've seen so far, is just a comedy film with some zombies thrown in, or a ghost, or some fucking were-sheep, or whatever. Seriously though, you should see Black Sheep, it's funny. But Tusk is the first film I've seen that is actually both funny and horrifying, and sometimes both at the same time. It was inspired by an advert that Kevin Smith once saw, where someone was looking for someone to live in his house completely for free. No bills, no rent, no nothing, but there was a catch, right? Whoever it was would have to wear a walrus suit, just for a couple of hours a day, but every day, and while wearing the suit, they would have to act as if they were a walrus. Now that alone, of course, would make for a pretty funny film, but Kevin Smith, being the twisted, demented genius that he is, took it a step further. What if it wasn't just a matter of wearing a suit for a few hours a day? What if someone wanted to surgically transform you into a walrus? Now, obviously, on the face of it, that looks like it would be the plot for some kind of wacky comedy. Oh, no. Tusk is, without a doubt, the most affecting depiction of abject human misery that I have ever seen on screen. It's horrifying. It's harrowing. It's damn near impossible to watch. And it's hilarious. And that's the thing, this is one of maybe 3 or 4 films that I'll be talking about this month that have actually scared me. But it's also the only one that's made me laugh. We'll cut from this brutal, walrus-themed body horror with a guy just being mutilated and dehumanized, literally dehumanized in the most awful way, to a funny conversation with these typical Kevin Smith characters, that typical Kevin Smith wit, and it works. The scary bits are scary, the funny bits are funny, and the conflict between the two doesn't damage the film as a cohesive whole. In fact, I don't think there is a conflict between the humour and the horror in Tusk. I think the comedy is what allows the film to be so horrifying. I mean, let's face it, a man getting turned into a walrus is a pretty ridiculous idea. Like, if they had tried to play it completely straight, people would have been laughing it out of theatres. Nobody would have been scared. But Tusk acknowledges the humour inherent in that idea. It acknowledges that the central premise is ridiculous, and it incorporates that ridiculousness into the film. And by doing that, Smith was able to fully and unironically explore just how fucked up that idea is. Just like how an action comedy like Hot Fuzz allows us to enjoy action cliches by placing them within a parodic framework, it legitimizes things that we would otherwise consider sort of cheesy and stupid by saying, okay, we can laugh at this, we can laugh, it's funny. And that opens a door. It lets you say, it's funny, I can accept the stupidity of it because that's part of it, because it's supposed to make me laugh. And holy shit, that is scary. Like, you're looking at something and you've been laughing and laughing, and you've sort of slipped into being invested in the film. By joking, we allow ourselves permission to be serious. The plot is fairly straightforward. Well, No, it's not. It's not fairly straightforward at all. Actually, it's about a guy going to Canada and being turned into a walrus. But it's fairly easy to follow. Anyway, there's this guy who hosts a podcast where he looks at just funny, interesting stuff of various kinds, and he goes to Canada in search of a story. He finds out that lead is, in a very literal way, dead, and he discovers this advert for there's an old sailor looking for a house guest, someone who'll come and live with him, share his stories, and sort of keep him company. And he decides to go and check out this dude because it sounds like he's got something really interesting to talk about. This guy was at D-Day, this guy knew Hemingway. So he goes there and he's kidnapped, he's drugged and locked away and turned into a fucking walrus. And so it cuts between this guy's appalling ordeal in the basement of this mad scientist come sailor and the efforts of his friends to find him, which are hilarious. Like these sort of wacky characters that are perfectly written, that will just have you laughing all the way through until it cuts back to a guy in like a walrus suit made of his own skin, just screaming in horror at what has happened to him. Honestly, it was one of the most disturbing films out of all of the films I'll be talking about this month. And when you see some of the others on the list, you'll know just how much that means. I mentioned just a second ago, there's this scene right after he's been turned into a walrus, and he's sitting and he's looking at his reflection in this pool, and he's just screaming his heart out. Like, for days, just thinking about this film would have me getting goosebumps, would have me feeling like uncomfortable, because it will get to you that much. You need to watch this. Anyway, that's all for today. Join me again tomorrow for another horrifying film in the 31 Days of Horror. Thank you very much. Good night.